She was born a commoner from the bottom rungs of society. She had assumed her future would be marrying an illiterate farmer, but when her father unexpectedly struck it rich, her destiny took a complete turn. Not only was she groomed as a noble lady, but she was also sent to Paris to study etiquette and French. Upon her return, she had transformed into an elegant heiress, her father's golden key to unlocking the doors of aristocracy. Yet her arrival made one true noble lady feel an unprecedented threat. A few months earlier, Sicily, which had been under royal rule for a century, was undergoing massive upheaval. A movement to overthrow the monarchy and unify Italy was sweeping across the land. The old powers and nobility were gradually declining, and Prince Selina, known as the Leopard, and his family were among them. For safety's sake, the prince brought his daughter Concetta home from the convent to their secluded estate. The joy of family reunion filled Concetta with warmth, but deep in her heart, the one she missed most was her cousin Tancredi. When she didn't see her beloved at the dinner table, Concetta felt deeply disappointed. After the meal, she searched anxiously and finally found her long-missed cousin in a room in the back courtyard. To her shock, Tancredi had joined the Red Shirts and sided with the rebels fighting to overthrow the monarchy. Concetta agreed to keep his secret, but on one condition: he must write to her daily to let her know he was safe. She watched him leave with a heavy heart, unaware that this farewell would change so much. Despite the constant turmoil in the city, Tancredi's letters always managed to reach Concetta through the chaos of war. However, after several days of silence, an ominous feeling suddenly enveloped her. That day, the family pets barked frantically. Concetta followed her father to investigate, only to discover a blood-soaked royal guard lying in the back courtyard. The guard had perhaps tried to make it home to see his loved ones one last time, but ultimately failed. By now, news of Tancredi joining the rebels had spread throughout the city, an act tantamount to betrayal of the family. Orphaned from childhood, Tancredi had been raised by his uncle, Prince Selina, who treated him better than his own son. This favoritism made the prince's son Paolo both jealous and resentful, viewing his cousin as a thorn in his side. When Paolo slandered his cousin, his father punished him harshly by pinching his ear. That evening, after much hesitation, Concetta confessed to her father about Tancredi. Learning that his nephew had been missing for days, the prince rushed to the city that very night to gather information. Fortunately, Tancredi was still alive. Unfortunately, he had been arrested for rebellion and would be executed at dawn. At first light, the prince immediately sought an audience with the governor, pleading for Tancredi's pardon, but the governor wanted to make an example to intimidate the rebels. The prince offered a blank check from a London bank, the amount to be filled at will, but the governor remained unmoved. The governor coveted the aristocracy's vast lands and brazenly demanded the prince's largest and most valuable estate. The prince initially offered to cede 50 hectares, but the governor insisted on everything. To save his nephew, the prince had no choice but to painfully surrender the family's only income-generating land. Tancredi was rescued by his uncle and cleaned up. He was then taken to a plaza balcony and forced to watch his comrade's execution, including a child not yet 10 years old. Hearing the child's mother's anguished cries, Tancredi's eyes reddened with tears. Back home, he forced a smile, but the perceptive Concetta sensed his deeply buried grief. Tancredi knew well that despite his uncle's heavy kindness, none of this was truly his. He had to go out and make his own way. He raised his hand to caress Concetta's cheek, but pulled back. He had no right, not yet. He resolved to leave this paradise once more. He hadn't gone far when the prince came after him with a gun, trying to force him to stay and not make a meaningless sacrifice. Unable to bring himself to shoot, and when persuasion failed, his uncle threw him a large sum of money, urging him to take care of himself out there. 2 months later, Tancredi's Red Shirts conquered Sicily, ending a century of royal rule and bringing it into the kingdom of Italy. Tancredi returned as a war hero, though at the cost of losing an eye. Concetta's heart ached for him, but seeing him standing before her alive and well was the greatest comfort.